It was 3 days before my wedding. The atmosphere in the living room felt dense, almost suffocating, carrying the scent of old wealth mixed with lemon polish. I sat stiffly on an antique sofa inside what his family proudly called the estate, a grand white-columned mansion nestled in the heart of historic Charleston. Overhead, a crystal chandelier seemed to watch me, its light cold and unyielding. That's when his mother, Eleanor, slid a heavy document across the gleaming mahogany table. It landed with a soft, decisive thump. "Sign this prenup," she said, her tone silky but entirely void of warmth. The pearls at her throat gleamed like tiny white teeth. "Or there will be no wedding." From his leather wingback chair, his father, Alistair, smirked into his glass of scotch, making no effort to hide it. And my fiancé, Mason, the man I was meant to build a life with, kept his eyes fixed on his polished leather shoes as though they held the answers to everything. He didn't speak. His silence was the loudest thing in the room. A pen rested neatly beside the contract. I didn't touch it. I didn't even glance at the pages crammed with their terms. Instead, I leaned back into the rigid sofa and let a slow, deliberate smile spread across my face. Because I knew something they didn't. I knew a secret that would change everything. My name is Haley Carter, I'm 29 and on paper, I'm an investment manager. In truth, I'm a woman who built her fortune from the ground up. I didn't come from estates or country clubs. I grew up in a modest house in Savannah, born to parents who had more love than money. My father was a mechanic, my mother a schoolteacher. They taught me the worth of integrity, not stock portfolios. I craved more than my small town could offer. I studied until my eyes ached, working 2 jobs in high school just to save for college application fees. That determination paid off. I earned a full scholarship to an Ivy League school. While my classmates spent weekends at parties, I was buried in books. While they leaned on family connections, I was building my own, handshake by handshake. After graduating, I didn't join an established firm. I gambled on myself. With just over $12,000 in savings, I launched my own real estate investment company. I started with rundown properties, flipping them one at a time. I learned the market inside out, worked 18-hour days, and sacrificed friendships, relationships, and sleep. By 28, my company was thriving, and my personal net worth topped $29 million. I didn't advertise it. My wealth wasn't for show, it was my security. I met Mason at a charity gala. He was charming, handsome, and came from one of Charleston's oldest families. His easy smile made you feel like the only person in the room. He told me he was tired of the shallow, status-driven world he'd grown up in. He said money didn't matter, character did. I believed him. I fell for the man I thought he was. At first, the Wellingtons appeared perfect. They greeted me with champagne and warm welcomes, whisking me away for weekend yacht trips and elegant brunches on their veranda. Everything was polished, refined, and hollow. Then the subtle digs began. Small, sharp remarks only I seemed to notice. One evening over dinner, Eleanor looked at me and said, "It's so impressive how driven you are, Haley. Most women from your background are content with simpler things." It wasn't praise, it was a neat little box she was shoving me into. Another time, Alistair slapped Mason on the back and chuckled. "Your Haley's got quite the business head. She's not like our soft southern belles." Meant to flatter, but it felt like he was calling me a predator. The worst came from Mason's sister, Clara. At a family barbecue, tipsy on rose, she lifted her glass and grinned. A toast to Mason and Haley. "Mason, better make sure she doesn't bankrupt you with one of her wild deals." Laughter rippled through the group. His parents chuckled. Mason squeezed my hand under the table like that would make it better. But I didn't laugh. In their eyes, I wasn't a partner. I was a risk. The new money who might drain the old money. They didn't know I could buy them out twice over. 2 weeks before the wedding, the mask slipped entirely. Eleanor began calling daily, her tone sugary but her questions pointed. "Hello, dear. Just checking in. Are you excited?" she'd begin before steering the conversation toward finances. "Haley, darling, I was speaking to our financial advisor. He had some fascinating thoughts on asset management. Does your firm work only domestically? What's your corporate structure? How are your personal accounts set up?" It was polite, calculated interrogation. And soon, Mason started repeating her concerns. One evening, while discussing honeymoon plans, he said casually, "You know, Haley, maybe we should combine our finances before the wedding, make things easier for our future." My stomach tightened. This wasn't the man I'd fallen for. The man who once claimed money didn't matter now spoke like his parents' mouthpiece. The instinct that built my career was screaming at me. This was no longer about love. It was about control. They wanted access to my money. So when Eleanor Wellington slid that prenup across the polished table, I wasn't shocked, just disappointed. Disappointed that it had come to this, and that the man I loved lacked the courage to stand beside me. This wasn't a balanced agreement to protect us both. From the first page, I could see it for what it was, a financial chokehold. A trap. I lifted the papers, my hands steady, my mind sharp, scanning each clause like I would any contract. Clause 7.1. Any real estate, businesses, or significant assets acquired by either party during the marriage would belong solely to Mason Alastair Wellington III upon acquisition. They were after everything I earned from that day forward. Clause 9.2. In the event of divorce, I waived all rights to spousal support, alimony, and any claim to the Wellingtons' assets, trusts, or properties, present or future, regardless of my contributions. Even if I poured my own resources into their failing ventures, I'd leave with nothing. It was designed to strip me bare. I lowered the document and met Mason's gaze. My voice was quiet but heavy. "You knew about this?" He swallowed, eyes fixed on his shoes. "It's just paperwork, Haley," he muttered. "My parents think it's a smart precaution." "A smart precaution?" I echoed evenly. "It says anything I build belongs to you, and I'm entitled to nothing. Does that sound like a partnership to you, Mason?" He finally looked up, pleading. "Please, Haley, just sign it. Let's not make this a problem." And in that moment, I saw him clearly, not as my partner, but as a frightened son, tethered to his parents. He had chosen them. So I made my choice. No shouting. No argument. I gave them what they least expected, a sweet, agreeable smile. I slid the papers back to Eleanor. "You're right. It's a lot to think about. I'll consider it." Eleanor relaxed. Alastair gave a nod. Mason looked relieved. They believed they'd won. They didn't realize the war had already been lost. That night, I didn't cry or toss in bed. I acted. Driving to my downtown apartment, a sleek, modern place I owned outright, felt like returning to my fortress. In my office, I called my attorney. "Laura, it's Haley. Execute the plan. Lock everything down. Ironclad. Effective immediately." Within hours, every major asset, my company shares, investment properties, liquid funds, was moved into an irrevocable trust under my name alone. Untouchable. No husband or in-laws could ever claim it. My final move? Calling the wedding planner. "Hi, Jessica. It's Haley Carter. I need to adjust my RSVP for Saturday." Confused silence. "Your RSVP, Haley? You're the bride." "I know," I said lightly. "But plans have changed. Mark me down as attending as a guest." The wedding day was flawless Charleston weather, sunny with a soft breeze. The grand historic church was draped in white roses and lilies. Guests, a glittering cross-section of Southern society, filled the pews to the sound of a string quartet. I arrived as the ceremony began, not in a flowing gown, but in a sharp cream dress, tailored to my knees. It was a statement. I am not the bride. Whispers followed me as I walked to a back pew. Faces turned from confusion to shock. Eleanor was on me in moments, her fury barely contained. "What are you wearing?" she hissed. "What is this?" I smiled, holding out the still pristine, unsigned prenup. "I'm here to witness a wedding, not take part in one." "You said sign it, or the wedding was off." "I didn't sign." Her complexion drained. Before she could reply, Alastair stormed over, having seen the commotion. Mason stood pale and tense at the altar. "You ungrateful girl," Alastair roared. "After everything we've offered, you think you can humiliate us? You'll get nothing, no Wellington money ever." The room froze. This was their moment to crush me. But I didn't flinch. From my clutch I pulled a slim folder and a glossy magazine. Forbes. On the cover, me. Professional, confident, smiling. The headline: The Southeast's Newest Titan. How Haley Carter Built a $29 million Empire Before 30. I let him read it, watch his eyes widen. This was never about your money, Alistair, I said, voice steady and razor-sharp. I have 29 million reasons to never need your name. A gasp rippled through the church. Somewhere a champagne glass shattered, Mason's sister's hand trembling. Mason stood frozen, stripped of his illusions. The smirks and arrogance evaporated, replaced by stunned silence. They tried to cage a sparrow, not realizing they'd been cornering an eagle. I didn't linger. I turned, walked out, and let the heavy doors close behind me. The sun warmed my face. For the first time in months, I could breathe. There was relief, freedom, and a quiet mourning for a love that had never truly been mine. Hours later, my phone lit up. Dozens of missed calls, a flood of texts from Mason. Haley, please call. We can fix this. It was a mistake. I love you. My parents are furious. They're blaming me. Please, let's talk. I read each without feeling. They weren't apologies for betrayal. Only regrets over being exposed and failing his parents. I blocked his number. Then his mother's. His father's. His sister's. With every tap, I felt lighter. It was a clean, final act of reclaiming my life. Closure. That day, my heart pounded not from fear, but from the rush of owning my power. The betrayal had been brutal, but the ending, poetic justice. They had wanted my fortune, but left with public disgrace. I kept my dignity, my freedom, and my $29 million. So tell me, would you have signed, thinking it was for love? Or would you have walked away like I did?